Now, this brings us to a question that there are many frameworks available, React frameworks available, and sometimes it becomes very difficult for us to decide which one to choose. So you have your Create React app, you have Next.js, you have Gatsby. So what's the difference actually between the three? And how do I decide which one to go for? So let's start with the difference between Gatsby and Create React app first. So Create React app has just one global app.js, and if you had to deal with the server-side rendering, you'll actually have to do it yourself. So it provides you with the client-side rendering. Okay, so you have to write your server-side rendering if you want to do it, and then it creates routes manually, which means you need to create your own routes. However, in Gatsby, it's a combination of hybrid and static pages. When I say static pages, you already understand that pages are generated beforehand. When I say hybrid means that, of course, the pages will be generated beforehand, but sometimes you want to fetch some content dynamically. So that content can be served dynamically by probably using fetch or probably Axios and accessing it through some kind of API, REST API, etc. Okay, so you can still access some content dynamically using the hybrid pages. Gatsby gives you server-side rendering out of the box, so you don't have to take care of that. It already does that for you, and it creates routes automatically. So like we discussed, you have a pages directory. You can actually create pages like about.js, and then that page will be available at /about, so a route would automatically be created. Gatsby gives you one more thing, which means that it gives you a function which is called, in fact it's an API which is called Create Page API, and you can use this API to generate pages dynamically as well. Now let's take a difference between Next.js and Gatsby. So the key difference is that the Next.js pages are dynamically rendered. However, in Gatsby, the pages are statically rendered. So let's take an example. Let's say when the request goes to a server for a particular page, whenever any particular page is hit, then Next.js is going to look for that page and then look for the data. And when the data is received, it gets resolved, then it renders that data and then sends that to the client. Okay, so basically it's dynamically rendered. So if you go ahead and update for example, if you have got Next.js on the front end and WordPress at the back end, and if you go ahead and update the post, then it will be immediately updated because the content is rendered, the pages are rendered dynamically in Next.js. However, what will happen in Gatsby is that because the pages are generated beforehand and they're static pages, the queries are run at the build time, which means that if you update the post, then data won't be available at that time. You'll have to again build it. Okay, so but the benefit is that because the pages are generated at the build time, the content is already available, so it loads almost instantly. So you definitely get performance there. So this tells us that if you how to decide between whether to go to Next.js or Gatsby. Well, if you're going to have a data that is going to constantly change, then probably Next.js will be a good option. However, if you feel that you're not going to continuously update your data very frequently, for example, you have your portfolio site which we generally don't update very often, Gatsby will be a good option. If you just write blogs and you don't really update it like every now and then, every now second, then probably Gatsby will be a good option. Okay, so in Gatsby, when you deploy your site, it's going to build the static HTML pages and execute the GraphQL query and make the data available beforehand. So when the pages are accessed, Gatsby actually rehydrates it to a full React application. So I hope that helps you understand the difference between Create React app, Next.js and Gatsby. So to sum it up, you have to tell you in a few lines. I would say Create React app, you have to go ahead and handle the routing, create the routes yourself, and also handle the server-side rendering yourself. However, Next.js and Gatsby will give these to you out of the box. the key difference between the Next.js and Gatsby is that Next.js is dynamically rendered and Gatsby is statically generated. Awesome. Now some of the features of Gatsby. So one is like this is a pre-setup of modern web technology like React, WEBPACK, etc. In fact, this is a feature with most of the frameworks, because if you are not using framework, then if you're just writing React yourself, then you'll have to set up the WEBPACK, Babel, and etc. It gives you modern JavaScript and CSS already set up. It brings data from one or many resources. Builds your site as static files which can be deployed dozens of services. We've already discussed this. Okay, and yep, I think we've already discussed all of this. Yes, one of the key things is that it's also a PWA generator. So kind of provides you with a boilerplate for PWA already, so that you can kickstart your build your full PWA with this. It has got it's got some configuration in the in one of the configuration files, which is generally commented out when you install Gatsby, but you can uncomment it to make it a PWA, and then you can start building your complete PWA from there. And it gives you a feature of content mesh, which means that bring your data from one or many resources, and then finally you have your GraphQL query that you can query to get all of that data from one place, from that one GraphQL query. Okay, now's the time we learn about building websites with Gatsby and WordPress. So we're going to learn about this in the next video. So I hope you did like the video. If you did, please give a thumbs up, and do subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. You can also follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is imranhsayed, and on GitHub as well. So my GitHub handle is imranhsayed as well. And I'm going to see you in the next video, where we're going to talk about building websites with WordPress, building Gatsby website with WordPress. See you then. Bye-bye.